That's the way it is. Let's move to this next fight where we've got Merab, the Machine, Dvalishvili. This is the one that Rich is waiting for, taking on Henry Cejudo, Triple C. Holy smokes, guys. What a fight that we have here in the Bantamweight division, one of the most talent-stacked divisions in the sport right now. And what we're talking about is two guys that I absolutely love. Two guys that are after my own heart, right? What am I? You look at this. I got this a long time ago. Intensity, that's what it takes to be a champion, right? USA Wrestling, Concerto, that's where I started to get my come up in the sport of wrestling. And I watched these guys like Henry Cejudo, like Daniel Cormier, when they were fighting, and I said, man, these wrestlers can really do it. These guys that are just putting it nose to the grindstone. Are they the most sophisticated with the jiu-jitsu? No. Are they the best strikers in the world you've ever seen? No. But they put the nose to the grindstone. They have a winning mentality. They take everything they learned in wrestling from a work ethic standpoint, from a competitive breaking somebody standpoint, and they apply it to the sport of mixed martial arts, and they do it at the highest levels and win championships. And in Henry Cejudo's case, he's put together a resume that's simply phenomenal. When you look at what Henry's done, let's talk about the underdog here. Henry Cejudo, guys, coming in plus 160 underdog pretty much across the board. And I understand, why he is an underdog in this spot, coming in 37 years of age, right? And he's basically saying it's all in, right? It's do or die. If I don't win this fight, then I'm probably going to have to retire here because he's 37 years of age and he spent a little time out of the game. But he came back, he fought Aljamain Sterling, lost a razor close split decision in that fight. And I thought that was a fight that should have been minus 110 when I heard that it was announced. But by the time the fight got there, I talked myself into Henry Cejudo. I said, man, Henry is just a little bit better in the wrestling. And I can't imagine that Aljo's going to clinically out wrestle him. I was like, Aljo's the better grappler, sure. I was like, but I just don't see him getting to grappling situations often enough to win the fight. And I'm not sure in hindsight that he won that fight. I will have to rewatch it. But I do remember on the night thinking, man, Henry probably deserved that one. But it was a close one. And I love both of those guys, right? Aljo is a D3 wrestler from the great state of New York, wrestled at SUNY Cortland, right? So this is a man after my own heart, right? He went out there. I met him. I haven't met many UFC fighters. I haven't met many UFC champions. I met Aljamain Sterling. He was a cool guy. Took a picture with me. He was a nice enough guy. Had a nice conversation while he was probably doing, 10 million other things, watching the fights. And so I love Aljo. I love Henry Cejudo. But when I went into that fight, I just thought to myself, man, Henry Cejudo, great striker as well. And I thought that Henry was a little bit slow off the jump in that fight. I didn't think Henry looked like himself necessarily when that fight started. I thought he was a little bit slow, and I think he said the same thing. He was like, you know what, the ring rust did get to me a little bit. It took a little time for me to shake that off, for me to adjust. And I think that Henry is a guy that is truly a nose to the grindstone competitor. I think this guy will compete with anybody till the day he dies. He's a guy that really likes to win. And the things that I've always loved about Henry is his mindset. I was pretty confident, and this wasn't really when I was a huge bettor. This is when I was a big fan of the sport, and I was, trying to pick fights every week, more for just the love of the game, right? Before, it was a full-time type of endeavor for me. But when you look back, that Demetrius Johnson rematch, that was all the way back in 2018, guys, a long time ago, 6 years ago, right? And when I looked at that fight, all the way back then, there was an interview with Ariel on the MMA Hour. If you guys listened to the MMA Hour back then, maybe you guys will remember this, but I remember it distinctly where Henry went on there, and it's something that stuck with me in my own competitive career and in my life. Henry was talking about the fact that he lost to Demetrius, and he was like, I put a lot of pressure on myself last time when I went to fight Demetrius, and he's like, and it was hard, I'm fighting the best guy in the world. It's hard enough as it is. And, to put that extra pressure on myself, I felt like I didn't even give myself a chance. He said, so this camp, what I've been doing is I've been focused on doing everything right. He's like, because when you do things right, good things happen. That's simple. That's easy. It's not complicated. Sometimes the answer is simple. If you make it hard, if you make it, I got to do this, that, and the other thing, I got to do 10 things, then you make it harder than it is. then you make it bigger than it is. It's fighting. You do it all the time. It's wrestling. I do this all the time. It's grappling. I do jiu-jitsu every day in the room. What am I going to make it different because I'm doing it in front of 10 people in a, a different location? It's like these small little things that make a huge difference in our mind, unless we can keep it really simple. So this is a really interesting spot, right? Because on the one hand, what is Merab fantastic at doing? He's fantastic at pushing a pace, at getting in somebody's face, at taking them down, at breaking their will, and at outworking them. That's what Merab Dvalishvili brings to the table. That is why they call him the machine. And he is the younger party here. So maybe that's the idea, is he's going to go out there and outwork Henry Cejudo. But I do think to myself, man, Aljo is kind of like the big brother of the Merab and Aljo relationship, right? In the sense that Merab is elite with going out there and pushing that heavy pace and getting the takedowns. But what we've seen a lot is Aljo is like a devastating grappler, right? He takes the back and he puts people in really bad spots. I've often argued, I think you can go back and see on my Twitter feed way back when I have said before, like, do you guys really not believe that Aljo submits Merab in the training room with regularity? I mean, I think that definitely happens. Like, Aljo is a big bantamweight that has really good wrestling skill developed over the course of 25 years. Like, this isn't a guy that's been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. He's been doing it 25 years. Plus, he's been doing jiu-jitsu for X amount of years along the way with Matt Serra, one of the brilliant minds of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Came up with my coach. My coach been training in the room with him 20 years ago, 25 years ago with Matt Serra. So you understand, like, these guys are lifers of the sport. And I think that Merab is great because of his intangibles, because of his will. You guys see the video that's going around. I mean, Merab's like the social media sensation of the week. And I love Merab, right? I love that he's getting this kind of social media rise and the acclaim because he has this awesome personality. He's a super easy guy to get behind. But he had the broken toe incident, right? And when you look, we've seen Merab in the past definitely get into some dicey situations. He has some incredible wins, right? Prior to the UFC, how did he get signed? That incredible spinning back fist knockout of Rafion Stotts put him to sleep. Absolutely fantastic stuff. He goes out there and he will shoot volume takedown after volume takedown. Last time out, I had to argue with people. They were telling me Piotr Jan's going to go out there and dominate this guy Merab. Merab didn't have nothing for him. And I was like, y'all must be tripping. Like, I was like, this guy Merab is going to go out there and absolutely put it on him, right? And I did think that Merab made a statement in that fight. He went out there and showed, hey, I can compete with my hands. I can compete with my feet. I don't just need the takedowns, but also when I mix it in, then I can really get ahead, And so what we saw, these guys like Duplessis and Merab, in my opinion, they're weaponizing pace. If you ever hear Chael Sonnen videos, right, he always talks about that, and he sometimes overuses it. But I truly believe that weaponizing pace is a great idea, right? I personally believe in it as like a very simple way to beat people in any kind of combat sport is simply to outwork them, to make them work harder than you, so you are less tired than they are, right? Like it's a simple equation, but it really does work. And the problem, I think, is the way you can outwork somebody is volume, right? Or technique, right? Because if you have really good wrestling technique, then you know how to distribute your weight and put somebody in a difficult front headlock, right? Where they're bearing all the weight of you and them on their lower back. And that, starts to hurt, right? It starts to suck. If you guys have ever wrestled or grappled before, then you know this. If you haven't, that's okay. But I'm trying to describe so you guys get what I mean. When you're going against somebody that really knows what they're doing and you're extended on a single leg, they're going to start pressing you. They're going to start cross-facing. Everything is going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be nothing free or easy, right? And so the question becomes, who's able to make the other person get tired faster? We only have 15 minutes with which to work in this fight. So theoretically, over 15 minutes, are either one of these guys going to gas out? Are either one of these guys going to be critically tired? We saw Henry Cejudo push a very serious pace with Aljo last time out, right? Aljo's serious 5-round fighter. Henry put out after the fight, and I thought that he was fair to ask for an explanation for how he lost round 5. You know, he basically put out a full video of round 5 and said, "Here's round 5 in its entirety. You tell me, did I win or lose this round? Because the judge scored it against me. It cost me the fight." And I thought he won that round. I thought he won that 5th round. I thought he was working harder there in round 5. And that says a lot, man. Coming off of a very long layoff, going out there and outworking somebody like Aljo in round 5. I know Aljo's not known for his pristine cardio, but guys, they worked at a really high pace rate. They were fighting hard for that 20 minutes prior. And to see Henry still pushing out there at his age, going out there working hard, and then to not get it on the scorecards, man, that was tough for him. It was in Aljo's backyard. I think he had a little bit more of that local support in the building. I think that could have also been part of the puzzle. But I do think this is a very competitive fight. I don't think this is an easy fight. I don't think this is a pushover. You know, since when is Henry Cejudo a pushover, right? You look at the guys he's been a dog to in his career. It's been few and far between, and it's been when he moved up in weight, right? He moved up to fight Marlon Moraes. He did get hurt early on in that fight. But then what did we see from him? That championship level adjustment, comes back out and starts banging him with the right hands, puts him in the clinch, and just dominates him. You know, we've seen this evolution of Henry where he went from being, you know, this guy who had to go out there and wrestle, keep people down, to a guy that just can go out there and strike at a really high level as well. This is a fascinating fight because I also thought we've seen improvements from Merab on the feet, but this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit, right? Henry is a skilled guy on the feet, and he's also elite on the wrestling. He's elite in those positions. And I don't think we've ever seen anybody out grapple him, you know, from a submission grappling standpoint. Let me go back and look at his record. I don't remember that certainly. Yeah, no submission losses for Henry. Only one submission win. What was that, a Kimura back in the day? Where was his submission win? We'll have to take a look at Share Dog because I'm curious. Oh, it must have been a submission to strikes. Yeah, somebody submitted to punches in the first fight of his career. That's what it is. Okay. He has not submitted anybody. So that's interesting. You know, I don't think either one of these guys that necessarily is going to offer that much of a submission threat. It's probably going to come down to who can land the bigger shots and if either one of these guys is able to establish takedowns. So, yeah, I don't know exactly where this line is headed. To answer the question from Ben in the chat, he says, "Where does this line go?" We do not know. That's a tough one. We've never seen Merab on the back foot. I do not see Henry not coming forward with some aggression. You know, Henry's kind of weird to predict. Sometimes he does like to take that like back foot karate stance and kind of keep his way out of the pocket. But I also think that at times you're right. He does get aggressive. He does start chasing people into the pocket. And we've seen Merab, you know, be in danger. This is the other thing I wanted to mention is we've seen Merab in danger in the Moraes fight, right? So both these guys fought Marlon Moraes, and Marlon Moraes is known for being one of the most dangerous finishers in the history of the bantamweight division. He put both these guys on skates. Both of them had to rally to respond in that spot. So tough fights, but excellent job from them. So when I'm thinking about this, I say, man, got this guy in Henry. The things that scare me about Henry are the fact that he's firing coaches and he's talking about potentially retiring after this bout. I don't like people to have one foot out the door. I don't like them to be thinking that, you know, it can also create undue pressure, right? But when you're talking about somebody of a championship caliber like this, pressure can also create diamonds. So that's an interesting note. But then on the Merab side, we've seen him nearly choked unconscious by Ricky Simone. I would argue that he was not out there. I do think that Merab was awake. I think that the officiating of that fight was insane, moronic, a failure. But I think that when you look back, Merab was awake. He was, you know, uncomfortable. So he was laid back down. But we've also seen Merab can be hurt. He can be rocked and he can be in difficult fights. So I think that his last time out, he showed leveling up. He showed that he is primed to continue potentially making this rise. But when you're talking about being 65% implied or more, right, approaching 70% implied against a guy as talented as Henry Cejudo in the areas where Merab likes to put the fight, I do have to just, believe it when I see it a little bit. It's not to say that Merab can't win. It's to say that I can't get to laying this big price against a guy like Henry, who last time out was a pick'em price with the champion. I thought fought, basically up to that line. So I felt like I didn't get any value. I felt like I made a square bet. But still, at minus 110, I felt like Henry Cejudo, that's probably somewhat accurate. Maybe minus 125 Aljo if you want to get aggressive with it. But, I just felt like it was a very close fight the way it played out. So for me, fantastic fight here. Two guys that really want it. And, maybe Merab can break through here. I kind of like both of these guys, so I won't be sad no matter who wins. But I just think that from a betting value standpoint, it would probably be a dog or pass standpoint for me. Rich says Henry couldn't choke a giraffe. And he also says that Merab is the mush of the week. So if you're curious what Rich is going to offer for the mush of the week this week, there you have it. Merab Dvalishvili is Rich's mush of the week. So we'll see if he can come through, making it 5-0 or 2-0-2, depending on how you count the record, right, Rich?